have seen are opening statements from House testimony from 3 U.S. officials describing quid pro quo. The top diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, said the following. Ambassador Sondland also told me that he now recognized that he had made a mistake by earlier telling the Ukrainian officials to whom he spoke that a White House meeting with President Zelensky was dependent on a public announcement of investigations. In fact, Ambassador Sondland said everything was dependent on such an announcement, including security assistance. Everything was dependent on an announcement of those investigations.
And then he presented the text he received from
Was the administration holding up military aid in exchange for this investigation?
They have the aid. They're using the aid. They had no
but was it being held up at the time? Not now.
I think if you're going to do respectfully what Adam Schiff does, which is come out and cherry pick 10 seconds or 10 minutes of 10 hours worth of testimony, we have no access to the full testimony because everything's been done in the dark and secret. That process has been flawed from the beginning. We cannot unscramble the egg, put the toothpaste back in the tube now, even now.
But I'm not talking about the process. I'm talking about the substance.
So what does Taylor say later?
Was military aid? Later. I'm asking you just broadly.
They've got their aid. And
now, I'm talking about then. Was there a time when military aid was held up because the president wanted Ukraine to look into the Biden?
I don't know, but I know they've got their aid, and I know that.
So it's possible that happened.
Here's what's absolutely unimpeachably true. Ukraine has that aid. They have more aid than they had under the previous administration.
But it is possible that it was held up at a time.
This is Kellyanne Conway twisting herself into pretzels to avoid answering a question that everyone already knows the answer to, that the administration was withholding military aid to Ukraine in exchange for the promise of an investigation into Trump's top political opponent, Joe Biden. And Conway, whose salary our tax dollars are paying, leans on perhaps her most tenuous excuse yet, which, mind you, is no easy feat. She claims that Ukraine has the military aid, so there couldn't possibly be a crime. In other words, that because Trump wasn't successful in withholding military aid in exchange for the promise of an announcement that an investigation into Biden would be opened, that he's completely absolved. Only that's not how crime works. And I can't believe I have to actually say this out loud, but you can still get in trouble even if you aren't successful in carrying it out. Kellyanne's defense right now is basically, well, it's only attempted murder. And just for fun, let's grant Kellyanne for a second that, okay, the aid ultimately got there. But might we consider why? The aid was initially slated to flow on February 28th, but inexplicably was not released. It wasn't released after the July 25th phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky, during which Trump's top Ukraine diplomat, Bill Taylor, testified that any aid to Ukraine was dependent on a public announcement of an investigation. In fact, it wasn't released until September 11th, which was only 2 days after the Inspector General informed the House Intelligence Committee about the whistleblower complaint, a story that was immediately picked up by the Washington Post and the New York Times. And only then did the aid suddenly flow. In other words, Trump knew he got caught. That's why he held onto it in February and March and April and May and June and July and August, and would have held onto it even longer until he got what he was looking for, a public announcement that Ukraine was opening an investigation into Joe Biden. But then, after months of withholding it, to release it 48 hours after the Democrats on the House Intel Committee were notified is about as obvious as you can get in terms of a tacit admission of guilt. Kellyanne goes on to suggest that the media is cherry-picking information, that it's unfair to only report on certain tidbits. Only those tidbits are the incriminating parts, which is the point of all of this. The House investigated administration officials for the express purpose of finding out if Trump did something wrong. Those quotes, like the one by Bill Taylor admitting that Trump withheld the aid for an announcement of a probe into Biden, are the proof that investigators were searching for. So I get why Kellyanne wants us to disregard the smoking gun, but that's not how any of this works. But the most telling part of this entire interview is this.
Was military aid? I'm asking you just broadly.
They've got their aid. And
now, I'm talking about then. Was there a time when military aid was held up because the president wanted Ukraine to look into the Biden?
I don't know.
Kellyanne is so tainted by her partisanship that she's physically incapable of admitting the thing that every single witness who testified to House investigators has already admitted. The aid was withheld. That is an irrefutable fact. Trump asked for a public announcement denoting an investigation into Joe Biden. That is an irrefutable fact. In other words, that the only defense she can eke out is that she supposedly doesn't know something that isn't up for debate is a testament to just how astoundingly dishonest she is. So Kellyanne might think that she's doing Trump a favor by appearing on the cable shows to try and absolve him of his crimes, but when she isn't capable of admitting that up is up and down is down, then the only thing she's accomplishing is showing the entire country just how willing she is to lie right to our faces and pretend she's not.